Hello kiddies, welcome to another nipple-flickingly exciting episode of Spurt Weekly. Nipple-flickingly? Is that going to get me demonetized? Who cares? This is your Uncle Spurt feeling fresh after a week of pouncing about in Italy, where I of course spend my time embracing local culture and educating myself on this wonderful country's rich history and heritage. And in between all of the boozing, by which of course I obviously mean sightseeing, I did actually manage to find a bit of time for sunbathing, exposing my magnificent man flesh, which had all the Italian ladies screaming in delight, or possibly horror. Very similar, those two screams, sometimes a bit hard to tell them apart, as many a 1970s pop star will testify. And as you can see, all of that sunning has really made a difference. My skin is only semi-transparent now, kind of like an egg white that's spilled onto a hot pavement. Oi, why the f*** didn't I get to go on bloody holiday then? Look, Mr. Wanksock, I'd have loved to have taken you on holiday, but the last time I took you abroad, you yelled at the first person you saw that he looked like a crotch-sniffing pedo who liked to fist his own dad. Well, he bloody well did! True, but he was a sodden border security guard and we got hoid on the first flight back to Blighty. Aye, f***ing good trip that was! This is my job. I get paid money to do this. Anyway, here's a jingle. Spurt Weekly! So anyway, hey, it's June. We're almost halfway through 2023 already, and so far, no pandemics, no world wars, just about, and only regular amounts of f***wittery from them lot in charge. It's been going so well that last week I even flashed the cyanide tablets. And since we're fast approaching the halfway point of the year, it's time to do a best phones so far roundup before all the rest of the tech YouTube beat me to it, and I get all views. And yes, as usual, I've only included smartphones that I've personally fondled and tested, which so far this year totals over 40. It's no wonder I've got bloody wrist cramp. I can personally testify that that's got nothing to do with smartphones. But it does involve me grappling with a 6.5-inch beast. I think you're confusing inches with millimeters, end. Let's start with my pick of the best value smartphone of 2023 so far, and this goes to Google's rather chuffing good Pixel 7a. It is practically the Pixel 7 flagship from last year, except even dinkier at just 6.1 inches. You may not get a premium glass finish like its more expensive siblings, but that placky back still looks and feels great. You got a choice of these three colours right here, plus a dazzling coral effort if you order direct from Google. Some may say it looks like the contents of the toilet bowl once you've passed a particularly troublesome kidney stone, but not me, no sir. I think it looks lovely. And the Pixel 7a is water resistant too, so no worries if it gets a bit moist. Packed inside is Google's own Tensor 2 chipset, the same bit of tech that powers those flagships. This can handle everything up to and including some hot Genshin action. Although speaking of hot, it does get finger-tinglingly toasty at times. That OLED screen is a stunner, now boasting a creamy smooth 90Hz refresh rate, and there's a stereo speaker setup so your flicks sound as good as they look. As this is a Google phone, you've naturally got a stock Android finish with years of guaranteed updates so it can keep you going for the long haul. Plus of course you've got lots of great Pixel exclusive features, some serious audio smarts like call screening which is worth its weight in gold, and that 64 meg Sony sensor bolstered by Google's usual clever-ass processing shenanigans means that the Pixel 7a pumps out good looking snaps pretty much any time of day, complete with natural colour tones. So overall, it is a bit of a cracker, and my full 1 month review of the Pixel 7a coming next week. Wink wink, hint hint, etc. And while it's not as good as the Pixel 7a, sadly, I still really enjoyed my time with Samsung's fresh new Galaxy A54. It's a big improvement over last year's A53, although admittedly that's kind of like saying something is more appealing than a recently coughed up furball. Performance is now pleasingly smooth, and the rest of the tech is solid for this mid-range price tag. And also, as long as you don't have a massive aversion to MIUI or anything, I would highly recommend checking out the fresh new Poco F5 and F5 Pro, as well as Xiaomi's Redmi Note 12 Pro Plus. And full videos on those mother cluckers are live right now here on the Spurts. If you're on a tighter budget, well, one of my favourites of the year is the OnePlus Nord CE 3 Lite. This lovely lime version stands out with its blindingly bright design, while the bright and punchy screen is a 120Hz stunner. Performance is good enough for Genshins, albeit on a more gentle graphical setting, plus the battery life is absolutely superb. Even the camera is a bit of a cracker, adjusting admirably to a wide range of shooting conditions without absolutely filling its pants. Alternatively, if you've got a bit more cash squirreled away and you're looking at those more affordable flagship phones, well, definitely have a squint at the Xiaomi 13. It's one of the few premium phones of 2023 that's not ridiculously girthy. That compact display is a butterfly's bollock under 6.4 inches, and yet you get top-end specs packed into this mini frame, including the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 and a merrily versatile bit of camera hardware. It's not quite as good news as far as the battery life is concerned, while you do have to put up with that slightly quirky MIUI shenanigans. But in every other regard, I really enjoyed using the Xiaomi 13 as my full-time blower. Likewise, the OnePlus 11 inhabits a special place inside of my stony cold heart, right alongside alcohol and squelchy tentacle porn. I have very few complaints at all besides the lack of wireless charging. The OnePlus 11 is a very well slapped together smartphone that has been an absolute pleasure to use, helped along by the excellent battery life, the premium performance, and a tidy bit of Oxygen OS software. If it was a packet of crisps, it'd be salt and vinegar McCoys. It won't blow your bollocks off, but it is proper satisfying. Best foldable phone of the year so far is a pretty easy choice because pretty much bugger all of the bastards have actually made it to the UK so far. Which means it's almost a default win for the Oppo Find N2 Flip, which is no bad thing because it is a bloody good foldable, and a strong rival to that Galaxy Z Flip thanks to its superior battery life and impressive design which almost eliminates the gap and crease entirely. It's just a shame that the cover screen can't run any app that you like, and there's no water resistance. However, Motorola did just launch its latest bendy blowers, the RAZR 40 and RAZR 40 Ultra. Or if you're in America, the RAZR Plus something. The RAZR 40 Ultra looks particularly trouser rousing, and I'm hoping to bring you a full review soon. So on to my pick of the best phone of the year so far, and as cliched as it may be, it's got to be the Samsung Galaxy S23 and the S23 Ultra. And yes, I know every other tech YouTube twat has already jizzed senselessly all over these things, but there's a bloody good reason for it. They're chuffing marvellous. That regular S23 is a pint-sized delight, offering tremendous handfeel thanks to its compact nature, while still packing enough beef to satisfy even the frowniest-faced doubters. Gone is that Exynos toss of yesteryear, replaced with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which can kick the crap out of anything you hoy at it. Battery life is a big improvement too, while pretty much all of the best bits of last year's S22 have been retained. No, there's no headphone jack, and no, there's no expandable storage, and those are pretty much my only moans about this thing, and they apply to pretty much every other flagship phone out there anyway. The regular S23's camera isn't quite as fantastic as the Ultras in murkier conditions, while you also don't have that cute wee S Pen stylus. But if you're after the latest and greatest tech and you fancy something a bit more pocket friendly, well, the S23 gets 2 thumbs up and a seriously stiff trouser rod too. And yes, Samsung, you can quote me on that on the poster. And as you'll know if you caught my review earlier this week, I've been really enjoying Sony's Xperia 1 Mark V, which is like a breath of fresh air, now that Sony has finally fixed the whole being shit at taking photos without half an hour of fiddling with settings and then editing it to death afterwards thing. Now you can snap some pretty slick looking pics with minimal effort, while the performance is also a big improvement. That Mark V is certainly less burny than last year's effort. It's an absolute cracker for creators, proper good for music and movie fans. Gamers will absolutely enjoy it too. Bit of something for everyone. And hey, it's actually got a headphone jack and micro SD memory card support as well, unlike the Samsung buggers. So overall, cracking stuff. Go check out my review if you want to know more. I've also had quite a few people asking me what my choice of the worst smartphone of 2023 so far would be, which is kind of tricky because Apple hasn't launched anything yet. Lol. Here's hoping that enough consumers have figured out that the iPhone SE is total wank snot so they don't pull any bollocks like that ever again. But anyhow, that's my pick of all the smartphones that really make my sausage sizzle. So now that means it's time for the part of the show that kill the sizzle and make my sausage go all soggy again. It's viewer comments. Viewer comments. So in the last episode I was a wee bit poorly, bit of a dodgy tummy. I think the word explosive was quite appropriately used. Thankfully though, recovered just in time to bugger off to Italy and then utterly destroy my insides again with far too much beer and pasta. I had lots of people in the comments wishing me a speedy recovery, which was very heartwarming indeed. Thank you very much, you bloody lovely human beings, you. Also, Brave One says that the best cure for your stomach bug is Jägermeister. I mean, that stuff is basically just medicine, right? So yeah, hard agree. Mark says, what a sick video. Sick as in, or sick as in, yo, dude, that's like totally sick. Needs more emoji. Seth Pinnock says, believe it or not, YouTube decided the most appropriate ad to show me after all of that talk about hurling was a soup recipe with soba noodles. How's that for AI smarts? I mean, at least they didn't feed you a bunch of adult nappy ads or something, I guess. That would have come in bloody handy last episode. And the last episode I was also chatting about the Motorola RAZR 40 and RAZR 40 Ultra when I wasn't dashing off to transform myself into a human chocolate fountain. And we've had quite a few responses by the looks of it. Sleepy Panda says, love my Flip 3 and will most likely upgrade to the Flip 5, but the RAZR 40 design looks much better compared with the leaks of the Flip 5. Gotta say, I mean, especially the Moto RAZR 40 Ultra, it's a pretty wee bugger. I've seen quite a few people complaining about the fact you've got the cameras jutting out of that cover screen, cutting off a significant portion of it. And the people whining about that seem to be the same people who don't seem to mind the ridiculous iPhone notch. It is kind of a shame that they couldn't have just stuck the cameras on the opposite side away from the cover screen or something like that, but, you know, looking forward to testing it out. Sadly, I did miss the launch last week because I was, of course, balls deep in Italian steins. Rami says, I'm waiting for the battery to bump up to 4,000 mAh, but the cover screen is impressive. Yeah, Oppo did manage to get a 4,000 mAh battery into the Find N2 Flip. But yeah, I believe that the new RAZR 40s are 3,800, so not quite there. Should hopefully still see you through a full day of use though. Darth Guantai says, still waiting for the foldables to stop costing more than a car payment, or indeed costing as much as an entire car. My first little second-hand Moto was cheaper than most of these foldables these days, a little 1 litre Corsa. Absolute cracker of a car. One time I even managed to get up to 100 miles per hour on the M1, and not only vibrated so hard that 2 of the doors fell off. Shame it was only a 2-door car. Lucas is asking, will the RAZR 40 have Ready For support? And a quick bit of Google action later, and apparently yes, hip hip huzzah. Neil Bartlett says, what was the anime you had playing on that RAZR phone? It looked like some of the classic 80s ultra-violent stuff that I loved. Off the top of my head, I think it might have been the Cyberpunk anime that was on Netflix, which was, yes, pretty grisly at times. Nice and groovy, lots of limbs flying off, heads exploding, etc. Highly recommend. It will have either been that or perhaps Wonder Egg Priority, which is the other one that I've been watching recently, which is absolutely bat mental. And that's saying something for an anime show. I mean, the plot basically involves, from what I can gather, a girl who falls asleep, wakes up in an alternate dimension and purchases eggs out of a vending machine, which then grow massive once they're knocked and then split open to reveal a bunch of Persona-style monsters which hunt her and her classmates or something. I know it basically sounds like I just smoked a whole bunch of crack, but that is honestly kind of the story. Frankly, I find it utterly impenetrable, unlike your mum. Ted Jackson Mount says, hi Uncle Spurt, it's a real shame that Oppo have given up in Blighty, always like their philosophy of good where it matters, like the software, screen and camera, and budget where it doesn't really matter, like a placky back. Have you ever broken a phone? If so, what phone and how? Yeah, solid work, so I like how you just sneaked that one in there right at the end. The answer to that one is, unfortunately, yes. I hadn't broken a phone for bloody years and years and years, and then just 2 weeks ago I went and busted the Poco F5 Pro. Didn't just bust it, I absolutely mullered it. Smashed it harder than your ma last night. I'm still not even really sure how I managed it. I had it on the desk beside me while I was doing some video editing, and then through some sort of supreme cack-handed twattery I managed to knock it and belt it across the floor, smash down onto the wooden floor, and then somehow I managed to actually trample on it as I was going to pick it up. It just kind of fell over a light a bit or something. I don't know, maybe I was going through some sort of temporary psychosis where I mistook it for James Corden's face. Still works fine, but as you can see, it's a little bit cracky, bit splintery. The hand feel's not quite as good as it used to be. Martin Dobson says, hope you've stopped leaking when you read this. Yes, thankfully, very much. Cheers for your concerns, Martin. Sorry for a real question about phones. Oh, here we go. I got the Poco X3 NFC mainly after watching your review. At the time, it had a better chip and more RAM than anything else for the money. It's still going strong 2 years later, but is there anything else on the market now or on the way that gives real great bang for buck as good as this? I paid 179 quid for it 2 years ago, and the new F5 etc. just doesn't seem to be as good value for money. Us Geordies love a bargain even when we're forced to live in Sunderland against our will and better judgment. Oh dear, forced into enemy territory. Are you one of those undercover Geordies who just pretends that you're a Mackem, or are you one of those absolute nutcases who actually rocks an NUFC strip in a Sunderland pub? I've always said, right, wrestling bears and drinking your own piss. If Bear Grylls really wants to prove he's a grade A mentalist, all he needs to do is slap on a Sunderland strip and then take a stroll through the big market on a Friday night. If he actually makes it more than 50 feet with some of his teeth still left in his head, then fair play. On the subject of your technical questions, sir, well, if the Poco is still going strong, then do you really need to replace it? I mean, I guess it's probably out of security software update support and everything right now, so on that side of things, you might want to get a new blower. A lot of the new sort of budgety to mid-range smartphones, they've got like an OLED screen, slightly faster processor, but there's not been a massive amount of improvement. If you're not swayed by the Poco F5s, then maybe the Redmi Note 12 Pro. Running out of time, so better make these the last few comments. JG Wright says, when you're doing the Sony Xperia 1 Mark V review, throw in some drunk picture taking. I mean, that was basically around 40 to 50% of the photos that I took with that thing. I was semi-faced for most of that holiday. Ali says, dear Uncle Spurt, which do you prefer more, alcohol or anime? I mean, booze is number one in my heart, always. Not even the wife or the sprog are ever going to displace it. It just gets me like nothing else does. And last up, Alien Queen says, I just realised that TechSpurt is a play on expert. I used to think that it was more like growth spurt, like, hey, you just hit your TechSpurt. I mean, there's definitely some truth in that, to be fair. TechSpurt, the puberty of the tech YouTube world. It's awkward, it smells a bit, and nobody ever looks back on it fondly. Anyway, a massive thank you to everyone who commented last week, the week before, last week, whatever. Fantastic reading all those. Please do smash your comments down below and we'll try and stroll away through as many of those as possible in next week's show. And speaking of next week,
this is about next week.
So yes, next week got the full final frank review of the Google Pixel 7a, so stay tuned for all of that mid-range mobile hotness. And I've also got something iPhone shaped coming your way as well, so brace yourself. And of course more of the TechSpurt Weekly, same time next Friday. And please do let me know your thoughts on the best smartphones of 2023 so far as well. Do you agree with my list, or was I simply spewing a huge heap of donkey dicks? Great to hear your own personal recommendations down below. And please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell if you haven't done already. Let your friends know, let your family know, or just steal their phones off them when they're not looking and hit that subscribe button. That'd be much appreciated. And have yourselves a bloody wonderful weekend. Love you!